Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is Apollo, the Unorthodox preacher, and today we will be briefly discussing about cosmic consciousness. What is cosmic consciousness? Is cosmic consciousness achievable? Is it attainable? How does one attain a cosmic consciousness? And the relationship between the cosmic consciousness and the second coming of Christ. First of all, what is cosmic consciousness? Well, it's important I let you know that cosmic consciousness is a state of consciousness, a position of mind, a position of soul, a position of body that literally represents the whole idea of what God deems fit as what he calls man, for what he calls man, or for whom he calls man. To go deeper, cosmic consciousness is an impersonal, unanimous consciousness that must be attained before the embodiment of God, which is within man, can be fully made manifest on earth. And to delve even deeper, I will define cosmic consciousness as the consciousness that accompanies the final evolution of man. And by this final evolution, I'm talking about when man has realized, recognized, and reconciled with his God self, with his true self, with his only self, which is the God within, the I am. At this point of reconciliation, one enters a state of mind where life seems to be very blissful, because life is very blissful, because his consciousness has been sieved, and all the gibberish has been taken away. All the false notions of good and evil, all the ideologies of right and wrong, all of that is gone. And he has reached a point where he understands the world for what it is, a single body. So, is cosmic consciousness attainable? Cosmic consciousness is very attainable. Another name for cosmic consciousness is Christ consciousness. You see, when one attains this cosmic consciousness, the consciousness of Christ is bestowed upon him. Jesus was one of the, if not the first. Jesus was the first Christ. But alongside Jesus, there were other men who attained this Christ consciousness. We have men like Buddha. We have men like Muhammad. We have so many other great men that have attained this cosmic consciousness. However, in our new generation, in our modern times, it's very hard to see someone who has attained this cosmic consciousness. You see, how attainable is cosmic consciousness? Very attainable, but it requires a lot of concentration and consecration. It requires a lot of submission and giving your all to a higher self and a higher calling. Now, to many people who do not really understand the concept of consciousness, this might sound like a new topic, a new idea. But trust me, it dates back as old as the days of Moses. You see, the Essenes, one of the people who Jesus lived with and grew up with, the Essenes, the true followers of Noah, they believed in the 7 epochs of creation, after which man reaches the final stage of his evolution. You see, we are going through phases. You have to understand, and just as you are physically going through phases, you grow up, grow older, you have beards and all of that. You're also spiritually going through phases. What's interesting is the uh, um, spiritual phase moves a notch faster than the physical. And this is because the physical has to confirm before the spiritual has to confirm before the physical manifests. Okay, so cosmic consciousness is as much as a spiritual thing as a physical as it is a physical thing, or rather, it's as much a physical thing as it is a spiritual thing. This is because once one has entered into this state of awareness, this conditioning of the I am, once you're once you have identified with your innate self, what seems to happen is your physical environment will start to correspond with your spiritual. And being it that you're experiencing bliss in the spiritual, it manifests in the physical. And so you start to experience this bliss in your physical experiences. The only reality you will then know is good, because the only reality you have accepted, you have chosen to accept it is good. So this is why it's very important that you understand that there is a link between the spirit world and the physical, between the world of 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 of, of action and reward. Yeah, and that's the mind. Your mind is that one retailer or wholesaler, that one middleman that coordinates and responds and handles the responses of the spiritual world in relation to the physical world. So you see, if you were to answer the question, how would one attain a cosmic consciousness, you would have to you would have to arrive at the same answer, at the same beginning, which is the mind, which is the only beginning. You see, your mind holds the ability to create environments. I like to call conscious states environments. Your mind creates certain environments for you in the mental world, in the spirit world. These environments then are acted upon by the will, by divine will, and manifest in our physical world. Now, with the ability to be able to create environments, one should be able to realize that this same mental ability to create an environment of wealth, environment of health, environment of abundance, and and all that is capable of creating an environment that is cosmic, and a consciousness that is cosmic, because an environment is really just it was the result of a certain type of consciousness. So you then realize that the mind is the beginning of your journey to a cosmic consciousness. So it starts off like this. You must first understand who you are, what you are, before you can benefit from that position, or from that knowledge, or from that idea of your personality. If a king does not know his king, he can't make orders. He will just be sitting down there, living life like a slave, or a servant, or maybe even a prince, having no idea that he's a king. You see? So it's important that you know what you are, what we are as human beings, before you even start to benefit from that knowledge. Human beings, as I said in my last teaching, we are triune human beings. We are triune spiritual beings, spiritual triune beings, meaning we exist in three forms. I mean, this triune nature exists all over the world. Water has a triune nature, liquid, solid, and gas. You know, this is an esoteric concept that delves deep down and up to the Holy Trinity, down to man being body, mind, and soul. All this are the machinery required to attain a cosmic consciousness, your body, your mind, and your soul. But most importantly, each of them play a particular role. But most importantly, the mind plays a vital role, because the mind is the controlling element. That's the CPU, central processing unit, and everything. Nothing passes through there. You know, nothing happens that does not pass through there. Your mental ability determines your physical ability. Your mental ability heightens your spiritual ability. So, not to drift from the message, human beings, we are mind, spirit, and body. Mind, soul, and body. But in reality, what we are is what there is and all there is, which is God. Now, just as you have a physical body, you have a God body. And to cut the long story short, it is the recognition and the identification with this God body that results in the attaining of cosmic consciousness. Now, what I'm trying to say is this: the act and process of identifying God within man, accompanied with the act of a couple mental disciplines, physical disciplines and spiritual disciplines, is the foundation of cosmic consciousness. But most importantly, it is the identification, recognition, and I'm sorry to have forgotten, and submission, very important, submission to this higher self, this God body. That is the most vital process in the attainment of a cosmic consciousness. I hope you're following. So, you say you want to have a cosmic consciousness. The first thing you must do is recognize that God lives inside of you, as He lives inside of me, inside of your brother, your sister, everything that exists on this earth, animate and inanimate. He's the source, the atom in the atom. You get me? So that's the first thing you must identify with. And after you've done that, you can now then progress to quietening the mind, subduing the body, so that you can start to feel the presence of the Father within. I and the Father are one. That was Jesus' word. Jesus said he doesn't say these things of his own volition, of his own knowledge, but it's the Father that's within that's speaking through him. But I'm here to tell you something. The Father within is also speaking through you, speaking through me. Christ did not come to show us how different he was. He came to show us how the same we were, how similar we are. He came to show us what we need to be. Okay? He didn't come to show us to exemplify himself now. He came to be one of us. He came to show us how we should be. So understand that the Christ consciousness is for you and me. When you have identified that God lives within you, and you have started to feel the I am within, because all there is I am. I am that I am. I am that I am. The I am that I am is God. Understand me? From the cannabis you smoke to the cigarettes you smoke, although they have additives, the root source, tobacco, is of God. Everything is of God. Everything is God. And we can break it down. I wrote about that in my book. I would still do a couple episodes about it. And if we were to break it down, you will realize that when the atom has dispersed into the unseen, it has gone back to God. Because all is consciousness. God operates with consciousness. He is consciousness. God himself is the cosmic consciousness. So understanding that God lives within you, visualizing, meditating, affirming the fact, the verity that has been made in the image of the Almighty. We are, in fact, the Almighty, is the beginning of cosmic consciousness. When you start to live like this, when you start to think like this, you start to become more like your God self. This was what the disciples of Christ, this is how they live their lives. This is how great men and biblical figures, Moses, Abraham, Joseph, just name it. These are men who attained the cosmic consciousness. Even in modern times, there are a couple people. Joseph Banner, the great Joseph Banner, Ralph Waldo Emerson. These are men that attain certain consciousness. Fitch, the German philosopher Fitch. So it is possible to reach a mental state where you're operating with your authority and powers and abilities of your Father, because that was how he programmed it to be. We have just lost our way. We need to find it. We need to find it. Bringing me to the final sub-subject, and that's cosmic consciousness in relation to the second coming of Christ? Okay, I'm going to be brief on this one because I don't want to really go deep into it, but let me put it this way. Many of us believe the end of the world and the coming of Christ is going to be a physical manifestation of the book of Revelation. What many don't realize, what many don't seem to realize, is that the Bible is not a fictional book, it's a symbolic book. And so most of those dragons, most of those things are symbolic. You see, the soul cannot be burnt by fire. You see, God does not destroy his own, first of all. Second of all, pain is an emotion subjected to the flesh. So it takes only common sense to know that the soul cannot be burnt. However, there are spiritual processes that can easily be related to or be identified with as the burning of fire, because they are equally serving the same purpose of delivering a certain type of discomfort. You see. However, these are all results of cause and effect, as I discussed in my first episode. These are not um, uh, these are not imposed by God. These are imposed by law. Okay. So I was saying, the book of Revelation, is symbolic. So when you think about the second coming of Christ, many people believe it is the second coming of. It is simply just the second coming of Jesus Christ. You see, but what you have to understand is Jesus is the Christ. But the only way that the Christ can be summoned onto the earth is if the environment is right. That being said, I would like you to realize that until every man on earth has attained the cosmic consciousness of Christ, the second coming of Christ is not coming. It is the attainment of this cosmic consciousness by every living soul on earth that is the second coming of Christ. I would go deeper into that probably in my next episode, but I just want you to understand this. Christ's coming again is up to us. Okay? And now, if the world has to go through a series of unfortunate events to sieve out the ones who cannot attain such consciousness, reducing the number, allowing the process to be faster, who knows? But the fact still remains this: Christ is not coming back until each and every one of us have learned to love our neighbor as ourselves and love God above all things, and realize God lives within us, and start to exhibit the characters of God, and then reach the highest epoch of creation. There is no second coming of Christ until this has happened on earth, and this is what Revelation 22 symbolizes as a new heaven and a new earth will come down from God. And we shall all live there. We shall all be given new bodies. And we shall all reside there. This new Jerusalem is a consciousness. It's a consciousness that will manifest as this new earth, a new heaven. So that's my little talk on the cosmic consciousness, part one. I will still have to talk about it more later on. I hope you have enjoyed this by Paulo, the Unorthodox preacher. Thank you. Be sure to subscribe.